In this powerful episode of Victim to Victor, we welcome Dr. Michael Acton, an internationally recognized psychologist and relationship guru whose career spans over 2 decades and a vast, eclectic clientele basis. Known for his insightful and transformative approach, Michael has worked with high-profile clients across the globe, including celebrities, aristocrats, and executives. His expertise and dedication have made him a sought-after consultant and a trusted voice in the media on issues of trauma, personal growth, and relationship dynamics. Beyond his work with private clients, Michael is an active global lecturer, collaborating with the American Counselling Association and British Psychological Society and the Australian Counselling Association, as well as the Australian Association of Psychologists, amongst others. Welcome to the show, Dr. Acton. I could go on and on that.
Well, it's good to be here and share some stuff with you.
Oh, amazing. No, it'd be great for you to share a bit about your own journey, Michael, just, to becoming a psychologist and relationship expert. What initially drew you to this field?
But it's interesting because we liked the title of Neil works with me in media management, etc. We like the title of yours. But it's only recently I got into my truth the last couple of years. Um, and also for me to step aside from my shame and be honest with people. So not only am I a scientist practitioner in the field, but I was working as a clinician for over 30 years with people that are in domestic violence situations, suicide prevention, etc., family trauma, relationship issues, divorce, etc. And there came a time when I had to decide whether I was going to go back to teaching in a university or a college to pay forward what I've learned from people over the last 30 years. And I thought, well, do I really want to be stuck in a political arena of a faculty in a university? How can I get all the information and really rich experiences of all the people that come to me over the years? How can I get that and pay it forward? So clinicians that are being born now, clinicians that are developing now, or clinicians doing their continuous professional development can learn not only from me and my experiences, but from all those amazing people that brought me their strategies. Every patient brings me something new and I learn. And I just thought that's going to be such a waste to end my career keeping all that to myself. So I decided in this latter part of my career to start paying forward to the field. So I'm in the press heavily, I lecture heavily, I write books, which have been received worldwide really well, and it's helping people. So that's great. But the most powerful thing I did was a couple of years ago, I left a very abusive relationship. Yes, you heard that right. A very abusive relationship, a very cruel relationship. And it's interesting because I left before my 60th birthday and I came from a very challenged and abusive childhood. I was sleeping in a car, a friend's car at the age of 17 with no family. I almost died at 16 from meningitis in Ireland. And it's quite a sad start in life, but I always had this zest. I always had a thing. I was always kind as a child, always thoughtful about others. I'm very empathic. So in the car, I decided to develop myself and to move forward and not be a victim and kind of change myself a little bit. I became a teacher, which was for me boring. I admire people that are amazing teachers, and I've had amazing teachers myself. And you've either got the gift or you don't. Sadly, I didn't have the education gift. So I went on to being a psychologist quite by accident. I was doing pastoral care in one of the universities I taught in, and I really enjoyed it. I changed my whole career, another 7 years of study. And I was a single parent mostly for my daughter at the time because her mother was very ill. So it was my daughter and I, and all that journey. And yes, we were broke, we had nothing, but we got through. And I said to her then, I said, if we can save one life by changing our career, then it's meant to be, and we're successful, and we've managed now to save and help many. So it's that's how I really started. So really, it was trauma in my childhood, but also I've had four partners before this marriage to this beautiful husband um, that's in my life now. And it was shocking that I was actually on the world stage lecturing. I was in the press giving interviews about different areas of my field of interest, which is domestic violence prevention and suicide prevention. And I sat behind shame, and I basically was. I've always been very busy. Unfortunately, this field is always going to be busy because there's an awful lot of people killing themselves or killing each other domestically. So, so really, that's where I am now. But I am the work I did the last few years was looking at my truth, and I actually went on a retreat in Scotland. There was a special retreat with 11 other people. There were 12 of us, and I went there and I said, and everyone had to have an intent for this 10 days. And I said, my intent is to be in my truth. And they said, well, why would that be? And I said, well, because of my work, I really want to lecture in a different way. I kind of, all I'm doing is recycling data and stuff. I really want to do it a different way. But also, I want to be in my truth for me, because it seems in life I keep on asking for salad cream in my sandwiches, and I really want mayonnaise. And I don't want salad cream anymore. I've been asking for salad cream because I've been pleasing everybody or not being in my truth. And after that amazing retreat where we all really worked on ourselves, I came into my truth. And now I'm not shamed in saying that I am a suicide survivor. And I'm not shamed in saying that I kept on choosing very toxic and abusive relationships until now.
Oh, interesting. Yeah. So, can you describe a bit more about how trauma does impact on relationships, not just with others, but with ourselves?
It depends on the person. There's no, I think we're all unique souls in the world. So some people will turn to drugs as a coping mechanism. Some people turn to alcohol as a mechanism. Some people turn to sex, whatever it is.
Mm.
We all have different ways of coping. Mine, fortunately, was a healthier one, which was learning about it.
Brilliant.
So that's pretty good. But what we do is, and it's unusual, but we only do it in intimate relationships. If we've had traumatic, unhealthy, dysfunctional child rearing in some way, and that could be being bullied at school, it can be sexually abused by somebody, it can be our parents being challenging, whatever it is, we repeat these patterns of our defense, coping, or safety in our adult life. However, the coping mechanisms we develop as children don't necessarily serve us well as adults. So, for instance, we might become people pleasers because as a child, we know that if we don't say too much about being hit, smacked, or abused in some way, or locked up, whatever it is, then, and if we're polite and kind and we kind of start looking after the abuser in some way, it goes away, it stops. And we take that to a healthy relationship. As an adult, we can actually teach the person to start to be awful towards us because they take. Or what we do is we attract people that want us. We attract the parasites that want to take our kindness and love in a different way. Unfortunately, people that use drugs, alcohol, some other kind of way of being in order to cope, of course, they'll be very dysfunctional. So there'll be dysfunction in their relationships too. So it's a very well-known phenomenon, very well-known experience of people to have a challenging childhood and then repeat certain really unhealthy, dysfunctional coping or safety or survival or risk minimization techniques in their adult relationships.
Yeah, amazing. Yeah. And so, how do you actually guide clients in actually understanding and addressing the trauma in a way that feels manageable, especially for those who may feel stuck during their healing process?
Well, my favorite expression is, and how does that work for you?
Mm, okay,
And the other thing I do is I have this amazing tool that I use. Would you like to know what that is?
go for it.
It's a big fat mirror, and I hold it up and I let them look at
Mm,
themselves.
wow.
And a story that I do share with the press, etc., is I had a patient many, many years ago come to me, and she was like a front page Vogue model, very well heeled, kind of, the Chanel kind of suit. And she came to me for several sessions. I couldn't quite work out what was going on. And the difference between therapists and psychologists, we formulate over several sessions. We start using all the developmental, social stuff. We're kind of getting this list together. And when I was formulating with her, I couldn't quite work out why she was with me. It's kind of like, okay, you come. It seems like you're getting something out of it. You're paying your bill, all those different things that are happening. But I just kind of thought, well, am I missing something? So it's playing on my mind. We're very reflective in therapy. And so she came into this session. I said, I've got to be, and this is the one thing about me that probably has helped me be successful in my field. I'm very direct and I'm very genuine, but I do it all because I care. So I basically said to her, in this manner, look, you know, you're coming here, you seem to be getting something from it. I'm not sure if I'm missing something. It seems almost like you're coming here. And I know myself from my own trauma that sometimes you can't say it. You keep on avoiding it. You're there, but you don't know when the right time is going to be, or even the right year it's going to be that you're going to come out. And most people do go to several therapists before they actually do feel the ability to get it out there, say it. And anyway, I said, I'm not sure. And she looked at me, and I could see something going on inside. Don't forget, this is a very accomplished, self-made person, and probably used to being in boardrooms, that kind of level. And she just raised her skirt a little bit on her leg,
Mm,
and she showed me the cigarette burns her husband was giving her on her thighs. And it is very shocking and very traumatic, but that was a massive leap for her to disclose that. And her husband was a lech, was not accomplished, was unfaithful to her, damaged her. And she stayed. And after, going through the work with her, the reason she stayed is because she had been drip, drip, drip on the cement, as Caroline Halliday likes to describe it. Drip, drip, drip on the cement, so slowly chipping away at everything about her. So at the end of the day, she felt like she was unattractive. Nobody would want her. She wasn't deserving of a relationship. She couldn't survive without him, etc., etc. And don't forget, this is someone that you would think, my gosh, you've got it all. But that's what her abuser did to her. So really, what I do with people is I say, okay, what are you here for? Why are you sitting with me? What is this about? And then after that, we go into, okay, so what do you want to change? What is it that's not working for you? And we do have to do safety. We do have to think about, okay, is abuse continuing? What are the safeguarding measures we have to go into, etc. There's all those different things we have to do. But really, the most important thing is to hold someone, because looking in a mirror is scary. And if you can imagine, it took me 60 years to get in my truth. And I'm a specialist in the area. I'm sitting with people all the time, giving them instructions, guidance, etc. And it's there's an expression from my friends that the the second two people I was in a relationship would have killed me if I'd stayed, because I was hospitalized a lot.
wow.
And the last one, I'd have probably killed myself.
Oh my
So
goodness.
that's me talking really in my truth.
Yeah.
And although I'm incredibly successful in so many ways in my career, and the biggest success I get is helping people. The biggest success I get, biggest reward I get, are the letters and emails, and it's just amazing from people saying, you put on a light bulb switch for me, that the book did this, or wow, I read that article, and thanks so much. It really kind of triggered something in me, and I've now started this process, and that's what my life work is. And I think you said earlier, well, what brought you into this kind of work? And I guess what I did was I took all my childhood trauma, and it was severe trauma. Although I'm slightly polished with the way I speak and things, I went through hell. And also being a man, you're even more invisible. And with men, it's interesting because although I'm a domestic and family violence uh, specialist worldwide, trying to reduce that, I I didn't really see some of what I was going through as abuse because there's not much maleness out there
Yeah.
that shows men being abused, and yet it's coming out now, which is great.
Yeah.
But but yeah, I mean, the instance of male suicide is up and up and up and up and up, and a lot of that's being linked to domestic violence from either same-sex couples or from females. And there was a huge study conducted in East London University that informed Relate Agency, which is a relationship specialist agency. And out of that research, looking at couple violence, it came out that actually female relationship violence is some of the most severe and the most destructive that they could see. And out of that study, it was a very helpful study. Um, I don't understand why people hurt people. It's outside of my comprehension. But out of that study, we actually learned something clinically, and we were told that if we're working with a couple or a family and the violence is continuing, even though we've got a contract not to have violence, that we have to stop working with them if they do continue the violence. Because if we were to do so, we're actually saying we're condoning it by continuing working. So what we have to do now with the last 20 years with patients to say, we've got a contract here, the violence stops here. And if it shouldn't, I've got to stop working with you. I know that sounds awful, but to keep on working with them and you're only with them for a few hours a week, you
Yeah.
can't control the safety and everything behind. And unfortunately, a lot of the abusers that do access therapy with their partners or their families, what they can do, especially if they're narcissistic, what they can do is use what we're doing in therapy and actually turn the tables and use that as a weapon when they're outside a session. So you're nodding your head a lot. I guess I'm making sense with you.
Yeah, because it happened to me.
Yeah. And me.
I was like,
Yeah.
oh my God, yeah, this is very relatable. And it is crazy because you just find the same patterns amongst, the narcissists. It's like the program to go through, all the different like narc phases that they go through. It's just crazy, just
I wrote the first book of my trilogy. It's called Learning How to Leave, and I wrote that to actually get myself to leave the
um,
guy that's putting me in hospital.
oh boy. Oh
And
boy.
when I finished it, I got it, and it's edited. That people don't realize that's 7 years worth of work. That book.
Wow.
And I didn't think there would be many people wanting to read it. And it's a bestseller now, which is wonderful. But it does help people to leave safely and timely for them. And it also helps them to look at themselves and say, well, why did I stay in this? And a lot of people say, well, why didn't you leave? Whoa, boy,
Yeah, exactly.
why didn't you leave?
Yeah. Because obviously, we know no better at the time. We just feel like that's our life, that's all we're worth, you know.
And
What can you do?
if there's anybody listening to this and you are in this situation, I always say this:
Mm.
don't do a knee-jerk reaction. It's really unsafe to do that. make sure if you are going to leave, then you leave when it's safe for you, and be very strategic in that. If you are being abused violently, or your children are in danger, or somebody that's living with you that's infirm or disabled or vulnerable is in danger, then you need to get help immediately, because you must make sure you're safe. But if there's an absence of the violent, life-threatening or life-maiming violence, be strategic, and work it out.
Yeah, absolutely. So for individuals out there who feel powerless after experiencing trauma, what are some small yet impactful first steps that they can take towards reclaiming their sense of agency?
Oh, the sense of agency.
Mm.
Well, again, it can be all different things. I think we have to firstly understand that we were in a relationship and we were in love with what that relationship could be, not what it was.
Yeah.
That's the reality, that's the truth. And to start writing down a list of what was good about the relationship and what wasn't good about the relationship, because the truth is, not all relationships are bad, even if they're the most abusive relationships in the world. It might have been that having Sunday lunch and a movie was a special moment in that relationship, and every week that was something you just looked forward to and you miss. It's okay to miss things in an abusive relationship, but what were you hoping for in the relationship that didn't happen? Because we can't change people, they have to change themselves. So what were you hoping for, but what were you getting? And look at that reality. And then to ground ourselves, to start thinking, well, before the abuse, what was it that I liked? What did I like doing? What was I interested in? Because an abusive relationship will grind you down to forgetting about yourself. Basically, we don't exist in an abusive relationship. We are serving them. And another example I usually give in the press is that if your partner drops, I've always been asked, how do you know if you're in a narcissistic abusive relationship or any kind of dysfunctional relationship? And I say, well, if your partner drops a cup in the kitchen, it smashes on the floor, you rush into the kitchen and clear it up, and you apologize for the cup breaking. You're in an unhealthy relationship. That's a really good measure, because that's what they do. They get you to be responsible for everything that goes bad.
They do. They do. That's a really that is a real strong one, to be honest. And so maybe that's something that everyone can ask themselves right now
Mm.
in their
The other
relationship.
thing is nature. I was part of a global forum yesterday that was looking at what we need to do over the next maybe 100 years to get the world to be a bit better. And it was full of different scientists from around the world, different authors, people in war zones, conflict specialists, and me, relationship specialist. Um, and it's interesting because we don't know the answers. We don't know, because humans are so unique. Um, we have the wars going on, and you're talking about how we can ground ourselves, how can we start healing ourselves after trauma? I think that was your question.
Yeah.
So basically, after a war, it's a collective thing. So in a war, you've got lots of people that lost their legs or blinded or have lost people. So in that situation, you're not as alone. It's still horrendously horrific and traumatic, but you're not alone. There's a group experience. Unfortunately, domestic violence, suicide, etc., it's a very private, silent, hidden, usually invisible situation where a person feels very alone. And another thing is, sometimes the abusers can seem very charming. And when you start to talk about some things that have been going on, people will say, including family, will say, "Oh, I can't believe that. Aren't you exaggerating a bit?" Because they're generally charmers. It's a very private war we're doing. But also, what I say to the end of this forum to the lady that was, she was an amazing scientist in conflict war zones, and she was actually in a war zone when we were talking. And I explained to her, we're both battling wars. I said, your war is thousands of people that have been damaged and hurt in the Gaza-Israeli conflict, etc., and the border sense of the war. I said, what myself and my colleague here are doing is we are fighting a war that actually has millions of people dying every year through suicide and domestic violence. Millions and millions of people dying, and also millions of people being deformed with uncompleted suicide, where they've ended up paraplegic, they've lost their arm, they're waiting for liver transplant, they've broken their neck through uncompleted suicide, etc., etc. So this war is people killing themselves or harming or killing each other. And I think that's where the keys are to what's going wrong in the world.
Yeah.
So if we are out of a violent relationship, generally the thing is the person that's the survivor, and I call them an abusee, not a victim. As an abusee can have power. Victims, generally the language makes them powerless.
Yeah.
So the abusee, in my mind, has to look at themselves, has to see their part in it, why they stayed, how they got in it, what was working, what wasn't working for them. But then to be part of nature, and I'm not going to put on white socks and sandals and a cardigan, but to actually go, make sure they go out into nature. If it's a park bench, if it's a beach, if it's a garden, a corner of a garden, if they don't feel confident. And don't forget, the one thing we lose in an abusive relationship or trauma of any kind in families is confidence. We don't have the confidence. Sometimes we have to talk to ourselves and get ourselves to get out to the shop. Sometimes we get halfway to the shop and say, no, John, I'm not going to go to but that's fine. Just take the steps. But the most important thing is to start feeling the air, to start just seeing the seasons, standing outside your door and feeling the rain for a moment, to actually get back into the world. Because what our abusers do, and whether that's your family, whether it's a partner, or whether it's your child, geriatric abuse is on the rise. It's terrible what happens with geriatric abuse as well. But if you are in an abusive situation, we do tend to disconnect from the world. We've got to find a way of reconnecting. So I hope that's not too woolly for you. But anything that makes us feel more valuable, more confident, to be back in touch with something of ourselves. It could be a smell, it could be a taste of white pepper your grandma used to put in a stew, or just start to recognize those things and allow them to be. The biggest thing you have to allow yourself to do is miss things from the relationship, but also to be grateful for the peace and be grateful for the journey you're now on.
Yeah. Oh, that's beautiful. Thank you so much for sharing that. And so, in terms of like yourself and your work, do you want to share a bit more about your book?
Which one?
Books. All of them.
Sure. Learning How to Leave. It's a trilogy. So the trilogy is the Power of You series. And Learning How to Leave I was in a very violent relationship with someone that turned like a bipolar situation. And my partner before that, for some reason, drugged me. This might sound like an incredible story, but it actually happened. Unfortunately, we found out because my brother-in-law picked up my gin and tonic at my party and was out for 12 hours. And then again, my brother-in-law and sister and I and my ex were in Sydney, Australia. And again, they found me drugged again when I was there. And this person is a very prominent figure in the world. And there are other things going on in that relationship, but I wrote the Learning How to Leave because I did leave that one. It absolutely hurt me it's awful to leave. It's very hurtful to leave something that you give up on. And if we are in a situation where we are loving, kind, and thoughtful, codependents are loving, kind, and thoughtful people. And that's why we get hooked into these really dangerous relationships at times. Um, Basically, we have to work out. Okay, so I'm leaving this. I'm giving up on this person, which is very counterintuitive. It's really against our grain not to rescue and please people. And all of a sudden we're leaving and we hurt them by leaving. We don't like doing it. But also we're hurting ourselves because we're giving up all that familiarity. We're giving up all that we've built and invested. And now we've got to find out some way of coping on our own. It's a tough thing. So I wrote that book for that reason, and it's helped thousands and thousands and thousands of people. I never expected that success. Then I wrote my second book, which is Raw Facts from Real Parents, because I've been working with parents for 3 decades, and I've learned so much from them. And when people think, well, hold on a second, you might think, well, parents coming to you about parenting, I'm sure they're crap parents. Why would you learn something from them? It's the good parents that come to me for help because they're thinking, I'm not doing this right, something's wrong, and they just needed to work it out or check it out. They might have a child that's got an illness or a challenging circumstance. I've learned so much from different people. And also, I interviewed a woman, Kathy Davis, who has been a nursery nurse, a successful nursery nurse for 36 years. And she brought the most amazing wealth. She's a housewife, a small business. She brought stuff that I had never even thought about before. So I wrote this book, and the first half is 0 to 21 children on how to manage them better. But it's small, tiny, because we don't have time as parents. Believe me, I didn't. I used to do 4 jobs, study and bring up my daughter. But they're tiny chapters, a couple of pages, but very poignant. They've got an awful lot of information in there. The second part of the book is about how to parent adult children, because it doesn't stop at 21. And you've got these ruddy children that go off the rails, and you've got to work out, how do I parent a child with their own agency? They can do whatever they want, and here I am, and what's my role? What do I do? So, and I've had that. My daughter's almost 40, and she's very peaceful, and she's managing her life now. But it's that kind of management process. So you've got 0 to 21, which is one kind of thing. Then you've got 21 plus, which is a completely different animal. So I wrote that book really to get together my thoughts on how I've learned to parent over the years, how I've learned to let go at different times, bring in at different times, control at different times, not control at different times. And don't forget, as psychologists, we study developmental and social psychology, which is a big part of that book. So, but it's in very simple language. So I call it my toilet parenting book, because you can have it in the toilet, pick it up, and just go through the 60 something chapters, which are tiny chapters. And you say, oh, do you know what? That's the bit I need. How do I correct them doing that at the table? And it's got one of my favorite things about devices. Children do what you're doing. If you're sitting at a table with a device, you tell the child to put your device away, you're wrong. You all have to do it. And the other thing is, if you're all sitting at a table and one of you is an accident emergency on-call doctor, and they can have their phone turned off in an hour and a half, so can you. And that's the things that we can change our habits. Then the last book that's just come out and is being re-edited. This is normal for books. So this book took 4 years to write. It's called Weathering Relationships, and it's never been done before. I challenged the grief models because when somebody dies and when somebody leaves us or we leave someone, the grief is different, because when someone dies, it's final. When you leave somebody or they leave you, they're acting up on social media, they're doing things to you, they might be messing around with the children, they might be doing something with finance. It's a different animal. So I've written a grief model about that. But also what I've done is it's about breaking up and how to manage that, and making up if you're going to do that, and how to do it properly, because people make up and screw it up again. Well, if you're going to make up, do it right. And it's got steps in this book that does that. Or moving on healthily, how you have to pull yourself together again and move on with your best foot forward. So it's a 3-part book. So really, it's all about me and what I've had to do and how I've had to learn and what I've experienced. But it's a combination of that with the scholastic stuff, and don't get worried because I write in a very simple way. I had to learn how to read and write after the meningitis when I was 16. So I write in very simple terms about very complicated things. So it's really a mixture of scholastic stuff, my own personal experience, but most importantly, is what my amazing patients have brought to me over the years and their strategies and coping mechanisms. Very, very powerful, very
Yeah,
powerful.
fantastic. Thank you so much. Yeah. So, in terms of, yourself being so busy and so active, how do you stay grounded and avoid burnout in your work?
Well, I'm talking to you from Miami, Florida. I lived here for 10 years. I'm visiting friends, but I walk. So I was very religious as a child, Roman Catholic, Irish Catholic, and I left the dogma of the church, but not all the lessons behind. So there's some very good lessons from religion. But I learnt that my new church was nature. So I love hiking, I love walking, I love the ocean, I love music, I love reading. And the most important thing is really at this old age of mine, 60 going on, is relationships and experiences. It's and investing in those, not spreading ourselves thin, investing in, rethink our friendship circles. Who do I really want in my life? Who am I going to invest in? Who's nurturing me as much as I'm nurturing them? So really bring that down to something manageable and very rich and special. But yeah, my friends are important to me. But experiencing things, I think and smelling things and seeing things and pacing myself. I think that's the thing. I mean, it sounds like I'm really busy, and I guess I am, but I used to do 60-hour weeks in hospitals and stuff when I first started off, and I don't do anything like that now. But I do enjoy my work. I do enjoy the people that come to me for help. I'm always respectful and admire them for reaching out for help. And they do work hard. And people come to me, if they're not going to do the work, they don't stay. So that's an important thing, because I kind of am a hard taskmaster. So if you're not going to do the work, you're not going to be around. You're not going to want to be around me. So yeah, so really that's my thing. I do breathe. I'm not a very good meditator. You might think I'd like to be this guru that is, but I'm not. I meditate by walking, by
Yeah.
listening to music. I can sing, but nobody else would want to hear me sing.
Amazing. And so, how can my listeners find you, work with you, connect with you?
Um, the best thing to do, I have an amazing person that supports me for the last almost 2 decades, Neil. He manages all the media stuff and everything. So if you go to the website, M for mother, P for Peter, A for Apple, MPA Mind, MIND.com, you'll find podcasts and all that stuff there and things I do. We'll add yours to that as well. It's a resource for people. Reading the books is a good one, and two of them are on Audible. So learning how to leave is Audible, and Raw Facts and Real Parents is Audible too. The Weathering Relationships, I never do the Audible until the second edition's out, because it's like a baby. It's the baby's born. It's not until they're a toddler that you realize all the things you did wrong. So I've got this toddler at the moment that's going to be able to walk properly in about March or April. We're editing now, so once that's finished, I'll do the Audible. And unfortunately, the people that advised me have told me that it needs to be my voice on the Audible, because it's more personal. So, but I have to drink chrysanthemum tea when I'm doing it, because doing an Audible book is a week or so in a studio, and it's like being the full director with a film. And they're saying cut, repeat this word. It's a lot of work. And chrysanthemum tea, singers use that to keep their voices going, and it does work. But by goodness me, after 10 days of drinking chrysanthemum tea, I'm not going to tell you what happens to me. But but that Audible will probably be out maybe next summer. It does take a while to organize. So the books, to see me myself, I'm very lean on the ground with my time clinically now. I do see people. I've got people refer internally with me, etc. But generally, if you reach out to me with a question, I'll point you in the right direction. And Neil usually sends out an intake form we fill out. And if I can't see you, which is usually the case, I do see some cases. But if I'm not able to, I will definitely put you in the right direction.
Yeah. Perfect. Thank you so much, Michael. And yeah, please do get in contact with Michael, listeners, if you have any questions about this episode or the work that he does, the fantastic work that he does. And obviously head on over to Amazon, I imagine, for your books.
Anywhere, any bookstore, Amazon, Apple Books. I think they're everywhere. But if you are finding it difficult, and it's worldwide too, if you are finding it difficult to get your local bookstore or Audible, sorry, Audible, Wordable's the thing I like to do for the Audible, etc., then just send an email, and Neil or someone will help you put you in the right direction, really. But I'd like to say before we go, thank you for all the stuff that you do. I mean, this is a great title,
Thank you.
Victim to Victor, and I wish there were more of us. I think a lot of us get lost. I mean, I finally found myself after 60 years,
Mm,
and to your listeners, it's never too late to
mm.
start again. Never too late to start again. And if you were to start again, then please do it safely.
Yeah. Oh, thank you so much, Michael. It's been an honor having you on. You've been an inspiration. I'm just touched by the work that you're doing globally and touching so many lives and healing so many people. So
I
continue
appreciate
your
that.
superb work.
Thanks.
Thank
Thanks.
you. Listeners, please do drop us a line if you have any questions. We look forward to hearing from you always. And until the next episode, stay blessed, my friends.